Welcome to the Book of Days Project. Today is February the 24th. Born on this day, John Picus, Count of Mirandola, 1463, Charles V of Spain in 1500 in Ghent. His birthday of George Frederick Handel, musical composer, 1684. Dead on this day, Richard de la Pole, Francis Duke of Lorraine and General de la Trémouille, killed at Pavia in 1525. Francis Duke of Guise, assassinated in 1563. John Keats, poet, dead in 1821 in Rome. It is a feast day of Saint Matthias the Apostle, Saints Montanus, Lucius, Flavian, Julian, Victoricus, Primolus, Renus, and Donatian, early Christian martyrs at Carthage in 259. George Frederick Handel, memorials of. Although a native Germany, born at Halle in Saxony on the 24th of February 1684, from having passed nearly the whole of his life in England and produced in all his great works, is almost claimed by it as an Englishman. Difficult, choppy sentence. Handel as an Englishman. When a child, he sacrificed his play hours and sometimes even his meals to his passion for music, which was so successfully cultivated that when only 10 years of age, he composed a set of sonnets, not without their value as pieces of music. At the outset of his professional life in 1703, he had nearly been lost to the world. It was at Hamburg that he got embroiled with Matheson, an able musician who violently assaulted him. A duel ensued, and nothing but a score buttoned under Handel's coat, on which his antagonist's weapon broke, saved a life that was to prove of inestimable value. Handel was never married. The charms of his music impressed many beauties and singers in his favor, but he showed no disposition to avail himself of their partialities. His thoughts were nearly all absorbed by his art, and a high sense of moral propriety distinctly marked his conduct through life. Handel arrived in London in 1710 and was soon honored by the notice of Queen Anne, etc., etc. He became chapel master to the Duke of Nades at Canons, and there he produced most of his concertos, sonatas, lessons, and organ fugues. Handel died on a Good Friday, April 13, 1759, and was buried in Westminster Abbey. Late in life he was afflicted with blindness, but he continued to perform and even compose pieces, and insisted at one of his oratorios only a week before his death. Handel will long be remembered for his munificent aid to the Foundling Hospital in London. In 1749, he gave a performance of his own compositions, by which the charity realized 500 guineas. The memory of Handel has been preserved by a series of performances of his works under the roof which covers his dust. At a century from his birth in 1784 was given the first commemoration, zealously patronized by George III, who was so fond of music he's accustomed to write out the programs of his own concertos. The Handel's Abbey commemoration was repeated annually until 1791. These performances benefiting different metropolitan charities. And we go on in a very hurried and hasty reading for today. Mrs. Midnight's Animal Comedians is the next entry. The town, as Beau Tibbs would say, was regaled in 1753 with a new pleasure under the appellation of Mrs. Midnight's Animal Comedians. With incredible labor and patience, a number of dogs and monkeys had been trained to go through certain scenic representations, which were generally acknowledged to be marvelously good imitation of the doings of human actors. The performance took place in a small theater, which was fitted up with appropriate scenery, decorations, etc., and was, we believe, well attended. A representation of the stage as it appeared from the pit is reproduced on the preceding page from a contemporary print. See if I can dig that out and put it on the Book of Days Project, bookofdaysproject.blogspot.com, in which, on this print, there are compartments exhibiting other performances by the animal comedians. You heard right, animal comedians. Taking these compartments as evidence on the subject, we find that there was a monkey's entertainment, 2 of these animals being seated in full dress at a table with wine and cake, while another of the same species attended with a plate under his arm. 2 dogs, accoutred like soldiers, hewed their agility by jumping over a succession of bundles of sticks. 3 personated Harlequin, Perrault, and Columbine, the last attired in a prodigious hoop. 2 monkeys in cloaks and cocked hats were exercised upon the backs of a couple of dogs. Another monkey mounted on dogback went through a series of quasi-equestrian performances, mounting and dismounting with the greatest propriety. There was also a grand ballet dance of dogs and monkeys in the formal dresses of the period, powdered hair, etc. And the original lady has just been brought in a sedan. Certainly, however, the principal performance was a siege, of which also a copy here appears. The stage in this instance presented the exterior of a fortified town. Monkeys manned the walls and fired at a multitude of canine besiegers. The army of dogs, under their brave commanders, came forward with unflinching courage, and a couple of ladders being planted, they mounted the ramparts with the greatest agility, and entered the city sword in hand, disregarding such casualties as the fall of 2 or 3 of the storming party into the ditch. Strange goings on with animal comedians. The fish and fish pies of Lent. The strictness with which our ancestors observed Lent and fast days led to a prodigious consumption of fish by all classes. And great quantities are entered in ancient household accounts as having been bought for family use. In the 31st year of the reign of Edward III, the following sums were paid from the exchequer for fish supplied to the royal household. 50 marks for 5 lasts red herring, 12 pounds for 2 lasts of white herrings, 6 pounds for 2 barrels of sturgeon, 21 pounds, 5 shillings for 1,300 stockfish, 13 shillings, 9 pence for 85 congers, 25 marks for 320 mulwills. The cooks had many ways of preparing the fish. Herring pies were considered delicacies, even by the royalty. The town of Yarmouth, by ancient charter, was bound to send 100 herrings baked in 24 pies of pasties annually to the king. Lampreys were the favorite dish of the medieval epicures. They were considered a great delicacy. So great was the demand for this fish in the reign of King John as to have induced that monarch to issue a royal license to one Samson to go to Nantes to purchase lampreys for the use of Countess of Blois. The same king issued a mandate to the sheriffs of Gloucester, forbidding them on their first coming to be sold for more than 2 shillings apiece. In addition to these favorite dishes, the choice vianders of the 14th century paid Epicurean prices for delicious morsels of the whale, the porpoise, the grampus, and the sea wolf. These animals, being then considered as fish, were held as allowable food in Lent. It is lamentable to think how much sin they thus occasioned among our forefathers before they were discovered to be mammalian. The flesh of the porpoise was cooked in various ways. A manuscript in the British Museum contains a receipt for making pudding of porpoise, and we find it served at a table as late as the time of Henry VIII. And in the north to a later period. Thank you for joining us in the Book of Days today, and many apology for my stumblings. Bye-bye.